Thank you so much for clicking on this video and welcome to my channel. Y'all can call me Twinkle, call me SheIsTwinkle, or call me Antoinette. As long as you're calling my name and watching this video, that's all that matters to me. Y'all already know what I'm here for. If you've watched my recent reviews, I am here to give y'all my rant, review, recap on Love is Blind. This is season 6, episodes 7 and 8. Now, let me tell you, if you thought it was drama in episode 6 in my last review, that was only the tip of the iceberg. These next 2 episodes, the audacity of some of these castmates, I'll get to it. All right, let me just walk y'all through from the beginning. Episode 7, titled Speaks Volumes. Okay, so boom. Episode 7 starts off Jimmy and Chelsea. He's apologizing to her once again, reassuring her that they are good and he didn't mean to hurt her or make her feel any type of way. This is a broken record, but it's going to continue throughout these 2 episodes. So I'm going to put that on ice and move right on over to Kenneth and Brittany. Kenneth and Brittany are in their room. And what I liked is that Kenneth was updating Brittany on the intent and the content of him and AD's conversation on the beach. She brought up some really good things about being an interracial couple. He also mentioned the fact that AD was concerned about Brittany being able to raise Black children. So Brittany says, okay, well, I just want to make sure that she had good intentions. I mean, I understand that she can relate to you because you guys are both Black, but I would hope that it didn't come off in a way as if she was trying to be shady or anything of that sort. Kenneth says, oh, no, it wasn't like that at all. Kenneth, you are lying, but okay. Kenneth also mentions he has people that are close to him and they're going to question her and they want to make sure that she is down for him. Okay, pause. Kenneth, you proposed to this woman. She is your fiance. Stop preparing her to walk into the fire. You also need to be able to protect her and have her back at all times. What does everyone else's opinion of her matter when you are the one that's supposed to marry her, not them? I didn't respect that, but that kind of let me know that he is a person that cares about what people think. So why did you get into an interracial relationship? All right, moving right along. The next day, it is a quick montage of each of the couples, and they are on their own little private dates. We see a quick scene of Johnny and Amy. They are doing horseback riding on the beach. Then we have Jimmy and Chelsea, and they are riding ATVs, which always looks fun. Then we see Kenneth and Brittany. They are on a small boat tour, as well as AD and Clay. Theirs looked like the most underwhelming date of them all because AD was just at a stoplight and they were riding around in an open top Jeep. He wasn't even driving. Clay wasn't even driving. AD was driving. So, okay, maybe that's what they picked. But then we get to Jeramey and Laura, and they are sitting on the beach and they are having lunch. We see them recapping their conversation from last night, and they are trying to come to a place of peace. What I didn't like about this conversation is the fact that Laura still took zero accountability. Jeramey did take accountability. Jeramey said, I should not have said that. I shouldn't have repeated it. You're right. The way that I reacted, I completely ignored you. I slept on the couch. I knew that it was wrong while I was doing it, but I did it anyway because my ego got to me. And I know that that's not the way to address problems and issues and handle conflict. So I apologize for that and I will do better moving forward. And so I thought, okay, well, that was very mature. However, all Laura did was acknowledge and accept the apology. She still feels like she did nothing wrong. Somehow they are both delusional because at the conclusion of the date, they think that they are the top couple out of all of the couples in the group. Okay. And I'm a middle-aged white woman. Whatever. Then we have a really quick scene between Johnny and Amy. They end up going to a picnic spot. They still continue to compliment each other. They haven't had an argument at this point, and they're still good. Enough about them. Moving on to the next. We have Kenneth and Brittany. This is where their storyline took a turn. We hadn't seen any issues from them thus far. However, Kenneth is really channeling some JP energy. If y'all remember JP from last season, JP and Taylor, the moment that he met her, from that point on, he stopped actually speaking to her. Like, he said a minimum of 10 words a day to her. So now we see Kenneth and Brittany, and they're on this beautiful boat tour in the middle of the ocean, and Kenneth is just staring into the distance. You could tell she's trying to make conversation, but he's not really feeling it. Dude, there's a camera here. Talk. They're not just trying to pick up you breathing. Oh, but then he looks to his left and he notices dolphins. And out of nowhere, Kenneth turns into a normal person and he's like, "Oh my gosh, we should have did that. We should have did that. I love dolphins." And Brittany is like, "Oh wow. Oh yeah, that's really cool." He was like, "Man, I love dolphins so much. I even used to have a dolphin keychain. And I've kissed a dolphin before too. I got a picture of it. I'm gonna have to show it to you. I love dolphins." Brittany is like, "Well, we need to have dolphins around more often." That was some low-key shade because she's trying to tell you in a nice way, like, you didn't start talking until you start talking about these dang dolphins. So where the dolphins at? Because if that's gonna get you to talking, that's enough for me. Anywho, on this same date, she decides to let him know that she's a really affectionate person and she doesn't mind being touched as well. So Kenneth says, "Are you serious? I thought that I was smothering you." Kenneth, when have you smothered her? You give her church peck kisses and you stay as far away from her as possible and you don't even talk to her. You don't even sit close to her. How are you smothering her? And he said, "I've never heard that complaint. I'm very affectionate. I want to be respectful." She says, "I understand that. And trust me, you're not being disrespectful in any type of way. You can touch me more. Feel free. You have permission." Dude, she wants to know that her fiance, although y'all not going to bed with each other, that you still desire her in some type of way. So he says, "Oh, okay." But mind you, he doesn't think that he was doing anything wrong. So it's probably not going to change. Moving right along, we get to Clay and AD. And I'm always a little nervous when we get to Clay and AD because they have the honest conversations, but all I see is red. I just see red flags popping up everywhere. And this scene is no different. Clay and AD are having lunch on the beach. Then he starts cleaning up the table, and you can tell that he's in deep thought. I knew that he was cleaning because he's just trying to organize his thoughts that are in his head. You can tell that something is bothering him, and then he just stares off into the distance. So AD noticed this as well, and she says, "What was that? What just happened?" There was a switch up, something just changed. Like, what's going on? He tells her that he's nervous to let her down. AD is like, "Why would you say that? Why would you feel like you're going to let me down in any type of way?" Then Clay starts to talk about his past trauma with his mom and dad's marriage. He starts to even dig deeper to say that his dad would take him on infidelity trips, which is very weird because why would you take your child with you? And this is your son. Are you trying to show him that, hey, this is how we live? You, my son. All right. So I got to show you the real. I got to show you how life really works. Okay. So Clay is feeling some type of way because he's never seen a faithful Black male before. He hasn't told his mom about any of those infidelity trips. I understand that there is a psychological element to this because he looks up to his father over and over again. He talks about how suave his father is and how his father will probably try to hit on AD because he's such a player when he meets AD. But you still admire him, regardless of what he did to your mother. And he included you in his actions as well, too. I think a part of Clay feels bad because he never said anything to his mom. And it's just okay to him because that's what his dad showed him. So there is a psychology behind it. He mentioned wanting to go to couples therapy again because I think in his mind, he's scared because it's ingrained in him that that is a normal way of living. I was taught this is normal. I recognize it's not, but at some point I accepted that it was normal. so I'm probably going to cheat on you. He's not saying that, but as a woman listening to him, that is exactly what I would hear. Somehow, AD is not hearing that. She's not seeing this red flag, and she's not running. But we'll see how this unfolds. At this point, Netflix shows us a quick montage of all of the happy couples waking up in the morning. Obviously, it's a new day. All the couples meet up on the beach. There's a lot of different conversations that happen, so let me just take y'all for a ride. We have Chelsea, AD, and Laura. They've all been physically intimate and they're smiling, so they seem happy about it. Now we get to Jimmy and AD. Jimmy had already apologized to Chelsea 50 million times. In his mind, he needs to make things right with AD. He apologized to her. If he made her feel any type of way, those weren't his intentions. Cool, moving right along. Now we get to Laura and Johnny, which is really interesting because you never see them interact on this show. But they're sitting aside, checking in with one another. How's your relationship going? How's your relationship going? Laura then says how much she loves them as a couple. And then she gets a little intrusive and was like, I know y'all done got down. I know y'all been intimate. You have to have been because I just love you guys together. So Johnny says, no, actually, we haven't. He told Laura that he thought that all women were on birth control because all of his girlfriends in the past, anyone he's ever dealt with physically, they were on birth control. So when he found out that Amy is not on birth control, that gave him pause. That's why they haven't taken that step to physical intimacy. So I'm glad that Laura corrected him and let him know not all women can be on birth control. It is a choice to get on birth control. Some women's bodies can't handle it. Thank you. Educate him. Just listening to his ignorance as a male, it was frustrating. You're scared to touch your fiance because she's not on birth control, as if that's the only solution. Yeah, I'm going to put that on ice. So now I'm going to go over to Jeramey and AD. Jeramey did not apologize to AD for making her uncomfortable and saying that horrible bean dip comment to her and Clay the night before. So now on the beach, he's apologizing to her. He's taking accountability. Cool. AD accepts that. She acknowledges it. Then at some point, he's asking about her relationship with Clay. And he pointed out to her that sometimes Clay can kind of like drift off. And that just lets him know that Clay is thinking nothing is actually wrong. He just gets into his head and it's nothing personal. She just experienced this with him on their lunch date yesterday. She said, oh my gosh, thank you for saying that to me because that reassures me. At least it's not just me. So Jeramey said, yes, he did this all the time in the men's quarters when we were back in the pods. So don't even worry about that. He's a good guy. All right, he looking out for his boy. Let's put a pin in that. So now we see Jeramey and Amy. They're having a quick chat with each other. The number one thing that stood out to me in their conversation is that Jeramey started talking about the difference between Sarah Ann and Laura. Why are you still thinking about Sarah Ann? As the conversation continues on, Jeramey says to Amy, I do want to meet Sarah. What? I think that me and her could be friends in real life. Your second pick, the one that you had sexual tension with, why do you think in your right mind that you could be friends? But hey, I liked Amy's energy because Amy literally did the motion of zip your lips. I'm zipping my lips. My name is Bennett. I ain't in it. I'm not even responding to that. You do you. That's your relationship. But I feel like you're digging your own grave. She didn't say that part. She literally just zipped her lips. But that's what I would have said. Now, beach day is over and the couples go back to their rooms. Johnny and Amy are in their pool for a nighttime swim. They have an honest conversation with one another where she reveals to him that her parents weren't really accepting of this process. She's Hispanic, so in her culture, this isn't the traditional way to go about getting married. She also said, if I don't get my dad's blessing, I don't think I can go forward with getting married. That is certainly not reassuring to tell your fiance in this blind date experiment. But hopefully that's not an issue for them. So now the camera has taken us to the next day. The couples are waking up in the Dominican Republic, packing their things, preparing to go back to the real world in Charlotte, North Carolina. There are 21 days until the weddings. Now we're seeing how each couple is adapting in their new space. So we start with Jeramey and Laura. It's the first day in their apartment. We see them in the kitchen. They are having sarcastic conversation back and forth with one another. They start talking about cleanliness because they're both OCD about that. They also start talking about pet peeves, which of course, Laura has a million of them because she just nitpicks at everything in life. It's a part of her personality. Cool, they're good. Let's move to the next couple. The next couple being Kenneth and Brittany. This is where I fully took a turn and did not like Kenneth anymore. Kenneth now has his phone back. This is their first night in the apartment. Brittany is happy. She's unpacking things. She's trying to set up the bathroom. She's trying to have conversation with him. And Kenneth is responding to her, giving her one-word answers, but not even looking up from his phone. I understand that he is a middle school principal and he's been away from his phone all this time. However, you're filming right now. Give us some actual content. Instead, he shows how uninterested he is in her and how he's responding to emails, and she asks about dinner. He says, yeah, I want you to cook. It's only right because it's the first night. She doesn't even take offense to that. She's like, okay, well, that's work I have to do, but cool. She keeps trying to look at him. He's not even making eye contact with her. Act halfway interested in the girl. And I did not like this scene because Kenneth was so different than what we have seen out of him this entire time. He didn't seem excited. He didn't seem attentive. He didn't seem like he was ready to unpack their day, the good and the bad of their day and how things went. Kenneth, who are you? How did you get back to the real world and become distant, uninterested, emotionally unavailable? He just bothered the heck out of me. I was like, get him off of my TV screen. This is too much. Remember, in my last review, I talked about how AD planted the seed in Kenneth's mind about him dating a white woman and how that would look and be in the real world. Ever since that moment, that's when he started to become distant from Brittany. Are you trying to upset her, push her away? You can tell that she notices it, but she doesn't want to nag about it, and she's trying to be patient. But I certainly couldn't have had that level of patience dealing with Kenneth. Put your phone down. Let's move on to Clay and AD. It's the first day in their apartment. They talk about how they've both had the opportunity to check in with their friends and family over the phone and how they're just really looking forward to the other person getting to meet their family. But things take a turn when Clay sits there and gets introspective again and starts to look bothered. Clay starts talking about how his dad's infidelity is just really affecting his mind. It's affected his relationships in the past, and how he's worried about being with one person. Pause. Clay is the same person that was talking to her in the pods saying, it's just me and you, baby. I'm ready for this. This is why I came here. It's me and you forever. I'm in this for the long haul. And now that you're in the real world, you have nothing but hesitation and worry and concern all over your face. That is strange to me. He even goes a step further to tell her, I do love you, but there are demons that I fight with. Is it an infidelity demon? Obviously, because that's all you've been talking about. AD, do you not see the flaming red hot flag? Okay. Enough of that. That was episode 7. Now we have episode 8 titled Clinging to Love. Clinging. I wonder who is clingy. Okay, don't worry, I'll get to it. Okay, so boom. We know that at some point, all of the couples have to go to each other's homes so we can see how you was living when you were single before you got engaged. First, we start off with Jimmy and Chelsea. They go over to Chelsea's apartment. Chelsea shares an apartment with her roommate, which they meet upon entering. Her name is Tiffany. Something that Jimmy noticed quickly is that he could never live there. For one, there's not enough space. He's not going to live with her roommate. And he's not going to live with her roommate because her roommate is just too much. She basically is another Chelsea, and he just doesn't see it happening. Then the two of them go over to Jimmy's apartment, which is a 1-bedroom studio apartment. Oddly enough, it is very neat. It's very organized, but it literally is just enough for one person. It's a studio. He works from home. Chelsea is like, "Oh, there's enough room in here. I really like it. I really like it. I would have to move into here." So he says, "I mean, I guess you could, but I have meetings all day. You'd have to go down the street to the coffee shop or go on a walk or something." And she says, "Oh, that's no problem. I like going to the coffee shop. I like going on walks." Okay. Why don't y'all just talk about getting a new place with each other, or talk to the apartment complex and see if you could move to a bigger floor plan? But nobody had that bright idea. Let's move on to Clay and AD. We go to Clay's house, which I didn't even realize that he was a homeowner, but kudos to Clay. He's been a homeowner for the past 2 years. His place is very clean. It's also organized, but it definitely has no decorative aspect to it whatsoever. As far as decoration, it looks like he just graduated from college. But that's not an issue. AD is like, "Hey, I could definitely see myself moving in here, and it's big enough for even if they have children," and she will add a woman's touch to it. She's impressed by it. Now, let's go over to Jeramey and Laura. They go to visit Jeramey's home. You walk into his house and everything was clean. Nothing was out of place. You saw his robot vacuum on the floor moving around. It stays clean. There weren't dishes in the sink. All of his utensils are gold and matching. Laura, being a nitpicker, and she's just a complainer, period, she wanted something to complain about. But in her confessional, she said she couldn't even complain. She said it's kind of giving serial killer vibes, but in a good way. And I could definitely see that. But once again, it wasn't a bad thing. So, hey, good for Jeramey. I enjoyed seeing his home. But this next house, y'all, I was not prepared for this. We see Kenneth and Brittany. They go over to Kenneth's apartment, and Kenneth is just so different in the real world as opposed to the type of person we thought he was when we were getting to know him in the pods. I was just caught off guard. When they go into his house, he's showing her the kitchen and his refrigerator. The refrigerator barely has any food in it. The cabinet has some junk food in it. It's not a lot of food, but it's only junk food. Then they opened up the spice cabinet and there were 2 spices. He had Italian seasoning and oregano. He didn't even have salt and pepper. I was so confused by Kenneth. What are you cooking? Are you not cooking? Do you just order out all the time? What can you make with just those 2 seasonings? You can't even make eggs. Where's the salt and pepper? I'm gonna get off of that. Nevertheless, Brittany is an angel in my eyes because she does not like to rock the boat with him. She comes off as understanding and loving, but I have to talk to you about this. So she expresses to him that she notices that he's different here. He's kind of had more of a lower morale than usual. And so she just wants to make sure everything is okay. What I don't like about Kenneth is that he is accustomed to managing people and children on a daily basis in his regular 9 to 5 job. However, Brittany is your fiance. Stop trying to manage her when she has real conversations with you. He literally puts her in her place and says, "Hey, everyone's not going to always have all the energy in the world. People are going to have their days. I can't always show up on a high. Some days I'm going to have normal days. I'm going to have low key days. I need to know that you're going to give me that grace and you're not going to be concerned about the status of our relationship because I'm not always on a high." Okay. Brittany is saying, I don't think that you have to always be like that. I just noticed there is a noticeable difference. So I wanted to bring it up to you." And he said, "Please, I just want to be giving grace." She said, "Okay, all right. This dude is not what I expected, but let's get off of them." We get to Jimmy and Chelsea's place. We see that Jimmy is upstairs because he works from home and he doesn't get off of work until 5 o'clock. So Chelsea has her friends come over. They go outside, sit on the patio. They're catching up, talking about how the experiment has been going thus far. Chelsea is talking to her friends about her and Trevor's connection when they were in the pods, and they had a good connection. She ended up choosing Jimmy, though, how she's so bothered by him because he did see a picture of Jessica today. She starts complaining to them because she said that he hasn't kissed me all day, and they're like, "What? He hasn't kissed you yet?" And she said, "Yeah." They were like, "Period?" She said, "No, today." And they still didn't clock her for that. But either way, Jimmy comes downstairs because I guess it's 5 o'clock. He comes to meet her friends. They're asking a lot of questions. How did he know that it was Chelsea as opposed to the other girl? Because obviously they heard that he was a hot commodity in the pods. And he basically says that Chelsea was there for him and would just say the right thing whenever he was down. And she has a beautiful heart, so that's why he chose her. Great. Then the friends ask him what his type is because they know what Chelsea's type is and the type of guys that she's used to dating, and they certainly don't look like Jimmy. So they're curious what his type is. He is always going to stick with a safe response. He said, "Well, Chelsea is my type. I think Chelsea is perfect." And they're eating it up. I don't really think that they fully believe him, but they're just like, "Ah, that's sweet. She is such a good person. She does have a great heart." They're just being super supportive friends. But Chelsea is not your type. You were mad that she lied to you. But all right, there's more drama to come with them, so I'm going to put them on pause. Let's get over to Johnny and Amy. They go to Amy's place to see her place. It's really nice and clean. The main thing they talked about is both of them having the desire to buy a home soon. Johnny is a super saver. He doesn't want to spend any money. He wants to keep every penny because he has goals in life. She does believe in saving money, but she also expressed to him that, "I think that life is worth living. Why go to work every day and then you can't spend any of your money or enjoy life?" So obviously, with their financial habits, they're going to have to come to some type of compromise. Speaking of money, they start talking about wanting to have kids. Johnny wants to wait some years to have kids. Amy is open to waiting, but she wouldn't be opposed to them having a kid sooner than years down the line. So Amy and Johnny start getting a little deeper into their birth control roadblock that they've been facing, because it is clear and evident that they still have not been physically intimate with one another. Johnny is really stuck on this birth control being the answers to their current problem. I don't think that Johnny understands how birth control works. Even if she were to go and get on a pill or some form of birth control tomorrow, it wouldn't even be fully effective immediately, not even by the time that they get married, which is 3 weeks from now. Also, birth control is not for every woman. Some women's bodies literally can't handle it, and you're injecting more hormones. That could change her body, her face, her mood, everything. And I just don't think that that's fair that she has to make this drastic change that could affect her body and her mental state in such a major way just so that you feel safe with touching her. Because also, birth control is not 100%. A lot of women have babies on birth control, myself being one of them. I love my kids, but one of them, I was on birth control and it didn't control nothing. I think that his hesitation is a little scary. Does he actually want to have kids? If I were Amy, that would be a red flag, because I would hate, especially with our first child, to go to my husband, say I'm pregnant, and he is not happy or excited, and he feels like I've ruined his life. Because that is the energy that Johnny is giving off, is that I don't want this anytime in my near future, whether it's a year from now, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. I think that Johnny is being extremely unrealistic. The only way that you can 100% prevent pregnancy is abstinence. Are you going to be abstinent with your wife? Are you going to get a vasectomy? That came up in the conversation. He said, yes, I know that's an option as well too, but he didn't hop on that train. He wants her to hop on the birth control train, but he won't hop on the vasectomy train. I don't get it. I don't understand. That conversation made me so mad, and I felt like he was not understanding at all. But their conversation was mature and it wasn't hard for them to have. She wasn't getting irritated. Honestly, they probably can talk it out and eventually come to some type of good space, but we'll see how this works out for them. Let's get over to Kenneth and Brittany. This thing with Kenneth and Brittany has turned into a complete chaotic mess. It is a train wreck. I am so mad at Kenneth. We are at their apartment and they start talking about how Kenneth woke Brittany up at 1 o'clock in the morning, knowing that she had to wake up at 5:30 in the morning for work. And so the fact that she even brought that up to him, that it was so late, and also the fact that he woke her up, that kind of bothered her. Kenneth responded by projecting everything back on her. He said, once again, if something happens one time, don't make it seem like it happens all the time. That was one night where I came home at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's not a regular occurrence. So once again, I would like to be given grace. I was getting my hair twisted and I hung out with my mentor and I called you in between each trip. So there's not actually a problem here. Okay, you're letting Brittany know that you better walk on eggshells and it is not okay to bring up a concern to me because I will shut you down. But that doesn't stop Brittany. Brittany then wants to get deeper into the conversation and talk about this pink elephant in the room, which is the topic of intimacy. Now, intimacy comes in many different forms. Intimacy is not just physical intimacy. It is the closeness that you feel with somebody as well, too. Even the conversation, the relative distance that you have between one another. It's feeling loved and secure and mentally stimulating them as well. And Kenneth just doesn't have it. He obviously doesn't because he's always has his face in the phone. Even still, while they're having this conversation, he is staring into his phone. And so she expresses to him, I want more desire and craving in our relationship. He says, I desire you, but I get pushback from you. So that's confusing for me. I woke you up at 1 o'clock in the morning because I was trying to show you some type of intimacy. Pause. Dude, we already know that y'all have agreed to not be physically intimate with one another until your wedding date. So you was waking me up at 1 o'clock in the morning to give me a hug and one of those little church pecks. Dude, you can save that until when I wake up. I have to be up at 5:30. Don't waste my time. And apparently he turned on all the lights too. But that's just a side note. Anywho, he also says to her, I'm concerned that you're questioning the status of our relationship. That's what concerns me. She said, no, I'm not questioning it. I want to know that there's some type of desire there that you have for me. And I try to show it, but I need that. I need to feel that. We barely kiss. We've never made out. I want the intensity of waiting. In other words, I know that we said that we're not having sex until marriage, but I want on my wedding day to stand up there and say I do. And I want us to have that much pent up temptation on the inside that yes, I waited and now I can unwrap my gift and it's going to be magnetic. None of that. You see none of that energy between the two of them. Honestly, I didn't see it when they met each other at the reveal. I saw that she was excited, but he's never looked at her in that way. They give off acquaintance vibes, roommate vibes. I just live with her and I got to deal with her until this lease is over. Those are the vibes that he gives off. But Kenneth does not take responsibility. Kenneth is emotionally unavailable. He deflects, he projects, and every other psychological element or word that I can think of, gaslighting, he does all of that to her. Women want to feel desired. She's not asking for anything crazy. But in Kenneth's mind, she's asking for too much, and it is outside of the moral lines that he has set down, and he knows that God is going to have something better for the both of them. He's not about to do anything extra. He said, this is not going to work, even though I do want you to find the person that you're supposed to be with, even though it's not me. He says, all right, let's hug so we can make sure we're good. You cool? Okay, cool. Then he goes upstairs. We hear him on his phone call a friend and say, yeah, I'm about to pack my stuff. I'll be on my way in a minute. You already had this planned. That was a very short conversation. There was not even an explanation after that. You would think a friend would respond and say, what happened? I thought you was engaged. Like, what? Is it just for a night or are you done? He said nothing else. It was as if he was prepared for this and he needed an out. I think that he was personally trying to push her away since at some point when they were in the Dominican Republic, and he was waiting for the perfect opportunity. He took no accountability and he put that back on her. I felt heartbroken for Brittany because she did nothing to deserve this, but she was left in the kitchen just crying to herself. I wanted to hug her through the screen. I hope one of the cameramen or producers hugged her because that was just heartbreaking. And this was so unfair for her. And I wish that she would have connected with somebody else in the pods. Just my 2 cents, moving right along. So now let's get to the headache. That's Jimmy and Chelsea. Mind you, remember, this is the same day that Jimmy has met Chelsea's friends. He's complimenting her on her friends. He said, I think I like you even more now that I've met your friends. They seemed really cool. Great. But then Chelsea takes this time to criticize him on the way that he says, I love you to her, because she says he doesn't say it in a convincing way. He's just like, yeah, I love you. And she doesn't feel it, as well as the fact that he has not kissed her once today. Jimmy even corrected her and said, what are you talking about? I did kiss you today. I kissed you earlier today. I had to kiss you at the bottom of your lip because you were putting on lipstick. And I also kissed you on your forehead. What do you mean? She said, oh, you did? I didn't remember that. Anyways, you've only kissed me one time today, and that is not okay for me. And I know that you saw that picture of Jessica. Jimmy said, Jessica? Who said anything about Jessica? This is not even about Jessica. You brought her up. So then Chelsea says, no, I know you saw that picture of her, and that doesn't make me feel okay on the inside. It has me thinking, are you regretting your decision? No, 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 no. Chelsea, once again, these are your thoughts and your insecurities bleeding through. Jimmy explained to her that yes, he saw the picture of her because one of the other cast members reached out to him and asked him about it, and then they revealed it to him. So then he went and looked for himself, and he came and told Chelsea about it. He wasn't trying to hide anything. But I think that just messed up Chelsea's entire day. So her reality was distorted at that point, and anything that Jeramey did, she was going to find something negative about it. And you can tell that Jimmy looks stressed out, but he's still trying to respond the same way. I feel like he's being emotionally abused at this point. So she just keeps pushing him to the point where he has a slip up and tells her the truth for a second. And his words, he says, truthfully, you're being a little clingy. Chelsea said, clingy? Clingy? Chelsea was so irritated and bothered. Like, you have the nerve to call me clingy? Her voice started shaking. Chelsea said, are you freaking kidding me? That was rude. Yeah, pause. That reminded me of this scene on White Chicks when they were in the dressing room and the skinny girl was like, all right, how do I look? And so one of the white chicks, he was like, you look so sexy. And she was like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Look at my huge badonkey. It's Tina the talking tummy. Y'all, that is how Chelsea responded. Like, clingy, like she wanted to tear up the entire house. Yes, Chelsea, you've been clingy and he's been scared to tell you, but you pushed him to the point where he had to tell you the truth for a change. She started saying, I should just leave and go home. I shouldn't even stay here for the night. I don't want to be with anybody that thinks that I'm ever being clingy. And I stayed up with you the other night. I watched your stupid show. I cooked dinner. I even went upstairs and had sex with you. And you're going to call me clingy? So Jimmy says, okay, well, since you brought up the sex thing, I could really take a break on that too. I could push back a little bit from that, but you are the one that wanted to do it. So I did it. She said, oh, Oh, I know you lying. Oh, okay. You ain't got to tell me twice because I will never initiate again. I will never say it again. Don't worry about it. She was complaining to Jimmy and she would not let him get a word in edgewise. He kept trying to insert himself and she's like, no, you're going to listen to me. No, I'm speaking right now. No, I'm talking. Girl, you know he don't do confrontation. When Jessica put him in his place, their relationship came to an end. That being said, she must have forgot that relevant piece of information about him. So how does Jimmy respond? Jimmy said, I will pack my things and I will go stay at my own apartment tonight. Wash his hands clean of the situation, deal with it at another time. So now Netflix shows us that there are only 19 days left until the wedding. We see a bar. Laura is sitting in there at the bar, and who walks up to her? Jessica. Because remember, Jessica and Laura are good girlfriends. So now they meet up with one another because they have some piping hot tea to share. That being said, Jessica is excited. She said that she looked up Jimmy on social media. He looked her up, even sent her a friend's request, and then took away the request some hours later. She looked him up. She looked all through his page, did the necessary standard amount of stalking. Then Laura responds to Jessica by asking her, in so many words, were you grossed out by what you saw, or could you have lived with that? Do you feel like you dodged a bullet? Jessica says, I just loved him so much and I do still have feelings for him. I just feel like it doesn't matter what he looks like. Like, I'm good with what he looks like. Honestly, how are things going between the two of them? Laura lets her know, I think they actually like each other. All right. So now we get to the reason why Laura is there. Laura wanted to share some tea that Sarah Ann has actually reached out to Jeramey, her fiance, on social media. So much so that Laura has a screenshot of it in her phone, pulls it up, reads it to Jessica. That was along the lines of, hope you're doing great in life. If you're having any second thoughts, then hit me up. I'm still here. She didn't say those exact words, but that was the gist of it. Laura felt some type of way about it, but Jeramey never responded to the message, but he did like or love the message, I suppose, to acknowledge that he received it. Y'all have some thoughts on that, but don't worry, it will play itself out in episode 9. But until then, Laura is okay with the fact that he didn't respond to her. However, he should have closed the door completely. We'll see how that unfolds. Somehow, Jessica was able to get the conversation back on her and Jimmy. Laura, being engaged and all, in a very similar situation, says, I definitely think he'd be open to seeing you. So then we see Jessica in her confessional, and she says, I just feel like it would be like dangling temptation in his face if we saw one another. I mean, Chelsea is a gorgeous girl, don't get me wrong, but it would be tempting. Y'all already know. In these next few episodes, the meetup, the inevitable meetup, is going to come up, and I just cannot wait for it. I hope y'all enjoyed this review. Thank you for sticking in there with me. Please come back for me to do the review for episodes 9 and 10 of Love is Blind. This is season 6. Like the video, subscribe, turn on your notification bell for the next video. And until next time, love you all.